We continue with this conference. Is Norhan Hassan Salem, member of the Technical Office of the General Director Exhibition, coordinator of the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, and Heba Khairy Metwaly, member of the Technical Office of the General Director Exhibition, coordinator at the Grand Egyptian Museum, about the conference discovering the life, the transformation of Gallery P34 in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo.
Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to present our project of transforming and renovation of Gallery P34, the Daily Life Gallery. It's absolutely not the only gallery that contains ancient Egyptian daily life collections at the EMC, but we can say that it's the main and the biggest one. In February 2020, my colleague Heba and I presented a presentation poster in ICOM Simpson explaining the content and the categories of the musical instruments collection in that gallery. After that, the collection was divided into three parts. One was transferred to the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization, NEMEC, in Fustat, and a small group of objects was transferred to Hurghada Museum, and the biggest one is still kept at the Egyptian Museum in Cairo as it is. In June 2020, we also designed a short-timed exhibition on the sidelines and by the occasion of the International Day of Music with this collection. This activity was under the title Piece of the Month. During the last years, especially after the renovation of 25th of January 2011, the EMC started to work on the museum display effectively. However, they are temporary and or permanent ones, especially after after starting to transfer the collection of the Golden King Tutankhamun to the Grand Egyptian Museum. There was a need to display another master collection instead, which was Tuya and the Tuya collection. And this is some scenes from the display, the new display of the Tuya and the Tuya collection that was displayed in 2019. We as a curator and the stakeholders always need to follow up the recommendation and the suggestions of the public audience, but we always face several obstacles and challenges. The most important one is the lack of the financial resources, as the institution is governmental and national. In addition, the complication of having permissions and approval. I think it's a common issue not only in Egypt. In 2020, the Australian Embassy in Egypt sought in doing a temporary exhibition for the boomerang sticks. The Australian two sticks that we have already at the museum since 1911, and the Egyptian group. But they decided after that to do it a permanent display. And finally, the final decision was to renovate the wall gallery of 34 that contains the stick boomerang and other daily life material. So the coordination was between the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, and the Australian Embassy in Egypt. The head of the project was Ms. Sabah Abdurazik, a former General Director of the museum. The Australian coordinator was Dr. Jane Smith. The Egyptian coordinator was the former head of the exhibition and museum display department, Asmaa Ahmed Meawed, who is the third partner of our presentation. The head of the mounting unit was Ahmed Arabi, Mr. Ahmed Arabi, and he was retired in the middle of the project, but he completed as a volunteer. In 1910, Gaston Maspero, former head of Egyptian Antiquities and the general director of the EMC, sent two boomerang sticks from Gorna dating back to the 18th dynasty to the Australian Museum. Then the next year, he received the two Australian sticks. And by the way, the exchanging was allowed in the Egyptian law in that time by some conditions and rules. This is the first letter from Gaston Maspero to the ethnographic head keeper of the in the Australian Museum. Then he received another letter explaining, asking about more information about the sticks, the provenance and the dating of them. Then they send us two boomerang sticks, and they are the two ones that we sent to them, and nowadays are displayed at the museum there. This is the provenance in Luxor, the provenance with the green. Square. Yes. The provenance of the Egyptian two sticks that are displayed now in Australian Museum. And these are the two provenances of the sticks that we have now at the Egyptian Museum. The diversity of ancient Egyptian activities led to have varied material, culture, and artifacts. And fortunately, the museum contains a lot of collections that contributed to the display of these activities, many of which are somehow similar, and we can say quite similar, to the activities of nowadays in Egypt. After that, the development included the entire gallery and the theme, and its theme that expresses different aspects of daily life. We started with the classification because the veterans, the showcases, one showcase contains varied material from different themes, not only for one theme like now. Then we selected from the storage because, as I told you before, as I mentioned, that some collections was transferred to the recently opened museums. Then we worked on the documentation because many information are written and mentioned in the databases and register books are wrong. So we started to work on the documentation and the registration of the objects. Interpretation, installation, graphic designs, and these ways of interpretation are not popular in use in the Egyptian Museum. Arranging, mounting, and installation. Lighting system for the gallery because the showcases weren't lighted before the display. The collection was divided into themes. There are 9 themes, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 11 themes, as it's showed. This is. Two veterans before the renovation. As you can see, that you can find some things from some artifacts from the housing gathered with the agriculture tools, for example. Then we selected from the storage, and these are the bar. Its expressions mean the storage area from in the showcase. We selected so many objects from the bar, in addition to selecting some objects from other sections out of the section that contains the gallery. Implementing. It took so much effort to collect the needed data about the scenes, especially because it's varied and related to different specialties. So we tried to revise some information, so, revise the information with the specialists. Then we worked on the graphic designs and illustrations with a team of volunteers. For example, I traveled to Luxor to have some photos from Nacht tomb to be able to have high resolution photos for the graphic designs. Mounting and installation, most likely the most important step in the museum display is the placement and the installation of the artifacts in a way that suits their display inside the showcases. That's because it culminates the success of all previous phases of the display. And this is Mr. Ahmed Orabi, and this is a small video. He was neat to show you how he worked. This is how he treats the Black Sea. The interpretation, we wrote the content of the panels, labels, and all the text material, and revised them with the different specialties as I mentioned. For example, because we are working on the musical instruments, we revised the families of the musical instruments with the famous Egyptian composer Ahmed Ghenidi. All the English texts were revised by a native speaker for sure. She is the coordinator of the project, Jen Smith. This is seen from the gallery after finishing the renovation. But after the opening or inauguration of the gallery in 2022, it became necessary to use the additional new showcases in the gallery. So we tried to redisplay the collections again because these vitrines or these additional vitrines was locked, and we used it in fixing the interpretation panels. But we are now about to finish this work and reopen the gallery again with the new additions. And this is the acknowledgement of the project. And these are most, but not all, the members of the teamwork of the project. And that's it.
Thank you very much, for this conference. It's very interesting. And I can say that always when I go to Cairo and to the museum, I always see a new pieces, and this is very important because it's a very good museum. And, sorry, no? And I say that always when I go to Cairo and I go to the museum, in this last year, I saw new pieces, and the walls are painted and very nice drawing, and changed many things, and I think it's very important. Thank you very much. For have some question? Yeah. This.
Thank you for my colleagues. I have no questions, but I would like to encourage my colleagues that this Greek work in Egyptian Museum, this work, it was needed more times, more artifacts, more handmaking. All the team did their efforts to make this work to be like this. thank you, my colleagues, for everything you do, and I hopefully to have a more and more in your life. Thank you.
Thank you, Mamdouh. We tried to work, we didn't have a lot of, or a big budget for it. And we were happy that we highlighted the importance of the musical instruments displayed within the Egyptian Museum, because they weren't in light before our participation in an international meeting in France in 2020. So we believe that our paper or our poster encouraged the museum to highlight and shed the light on the importance of the musical instruments. And what is important about the new interpretation that we did for the exhibition, that we linked the ancient Egyptian musical instrument with the modern instrument used nowadays in the Egyptian church, in the Egyptian opera, in Egyptian musical bands. And it was an important shift within the interpretation aspects of the Egyptian Museum. As you know, it's a classical museum and is still obtaining the classical interpretation methods. So we were very happy that we helped in making this shift in this transformation in the interpretation for the Egyptian Museum. Thank you so much. Yes, Vincent.
I want to join to your comments and encouragement. I was a witness of your work while we were working with the European program, of cooperation with the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. And it was very interesting to see the progresses you were making while we were working on our own project. If soft power has a meaning, it is with such an operation as this one, because my good friend Jane Smith was, when we had time to chat, and with you also, was always commenting the very practical action that you made. And you did a lot with minimum resources,
Yes.
with your resources, and this is really what we are talking about. Perhaps a small, tiny critique. In your presentation, we get the impression that ancient Egyptians were using boomerangs. It is not the case as far as I know. And it would be the case, it would make much more noise,
Yes.
So please avoid, if I may, to put the word boomerang too much in your comments, because otherwise a lot of people will imagine that between Australia and Egypt, bonds are, existed through ages. So this is only my comment.
So much. We will consider that, Vincent. Thank you so much.
Any question? I have a small question only. Do you have many pieces to restore for 2D? No. Sorry, do you have many pieces to restore for this?
Within the musical,
Yes,
yes, we have. Unfortunately, they are not in a very good condition. Some objects had been invented with the minimum conservation, because we are not allowed to make a reconstruction for a big part of the artifact, as you know. Unfortunately, the very good artifacts or objects had been transformed to the Namek and the Grand Egyptian Museum, and sorry to saying that, and Hurghada Museum, yes. So unfortunately, the pieces which had been left for the Egyptian Museum were not in a very good condition.
Okay.
But the team, the restoration team in the Egyptian Museum is doing a great work trying to save what they can save. Yeah. So alhamdulillah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and now,